The silence that followed was deafening. Innie stood frozen, her small hand pressed to her reddening cheek, her eyes wide with shock and pain. Mrs. Park gasped from the doorway, having been awakened by the raised voices, her face a mask of horror at what she'd witnessed. But it was the look in Innie's eyes that shattered. Something inside Jungkook's chest, not just hurt, but complete and utter betrayal. This was the person she'd trusted most in the world. The person she'd looked up to as her protector, her hero. And he'd just destroyed that trust with a single moment of weakness. Jungkook, Innie, he whispered, his anger evaporating instantly, as the full weight of what he'd done crashed down on him. Jungkook. Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. But Innie was already running, her bare feet pounding up the stairs as sobs racked her small frame. Her bedroom door slammed shut with a finality that made Jungkook's knees weak. He stood there in the foyer, staring at his own hand as if it belonged to someone else. Mrs. Park moved past him without a word, her face cold with disapproval. As she followed Innie upstairs, the letter lay crumpled on the floor where it had fallen. And Jungkook bent to pick it up with trembling fingers. The words blurred as he read them, his vision clouded by tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in 3 years. I love you so much. I made it with extra love. I miss you. He sank onto the bottom step of the staircase, the letter pressed against his chest, as the full magnitude of his failure washed over him. He'd become everything he'd sworn. He wouldn't be cold, distant, cruel, just like his father had been in the final years. Before the accident, consumed by work, and deaf to the needs of his family. Upstairs, Innie had buried herself under her covers, sobbing into her pillow with the kind of heartbreak that only a child can experience. Pure and devastating and complete. Mrs. Park sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing gentle circles on her back, and murmuring soft words of comfort. Innie, why does he hate me? Innie choked out between sobs. Innie, I just wanted to make him happy. I just wanted him to love me like he used to. Mrs. Park's heart broke all over again. Mrs. Park, he doesn't hate you, sweetheart. He's just lost. Sometimes grown-ups get so worried about taking care of everything what's really important. Innie, he hit me, Innie whispered, the words muffled by her pillow. Ynie. He's never hit me before. Not ever. Mrs. Parr. I know, honey. And what he did was wrong. Very wrong. Mrs. Park's voice was firm, letting Innie know that her feelings were valid, that what had happened wasn't okay. They sat together in the darkness, Mrs. Park holding the little girl until her sobs finally quieted into hiccuping breaths. But even as Innie drifted into an exhausted sleep, her small hand remained pressed to her cheek, as if she could still feel the sting of her brother's betrayal. Downstairs, Jungkook had moved to the kitchen, where the birthday cake sat on the counter like an accusation. It was beautiful, clearly made with love and care by small hands that had wanted nothing more than to make him smile. The chocolate frosting was slightly uneven, the strawberries arranged with the imperfect precision of a child's devotion. A single candle sat beside it, waiting to be lit. He thought about all the birthdays before the accident, how his parents would wake him up with pancakes and presents, how Innie would bounce on his bed singing off-key birthday songs. She'd been 4 then, gap-toothed and giggly, following him around like a tiny shadow. He single quotes D being 23, fresh out of university, and full of dreams that had nothing to do with boardrooms and profit margins. How had he let it get this far? How had he become so consumed by the business of living that he'd forgotten how to actually live? The answer was as painful as it was obvious. He'd used work as a shield, a way to avoid dealing with his own grief and the overwhelming responsibility of suddenly becoming a parent to a traumatized little girl. It had been easier to lose himself in spreadsheets and meetings than to face the fact that he had no idea how to fill the void left by their parents' death. But in protecting himself, he'd failed to protect the one person who needed him most. Jungkook spent the rest of the night sitting in the kitchen, staring at the cake and replaying every moment of the past 3 years. Every missed dinner, every bedtime story. He'd been too tired to read every drawing Innie had made that he'd glanced at absently before setting aside. He'd thought he was being responsible, thought he was securing their future. But he'd been so focused on providing for her that he'd forgotten to actually be present for her. It was Mrs. Park who found him there hours later, his head in his hands and his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She'd been with the family long enough to see him at his lowest points, but never like this. The composed young CEO had finally cracked. And underneath was the scared, grieving boy who'd had to grow up too fast. Mrs. Park. "She's sick," she said quietly, making Jungkook's head snap up. "Mrs. Park. Innie. She has a fever, 39 degrees. She's been asking for you." The words hit him like a physical blow. Jungkook, what? Since when? Is she? "Mrs. Park. She woke up burning hot about an hour ago. I think the stress and exhaustion from last night. Mrs. Park's voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. The emotional trauma of the night before had manifested physically. As it often did with children. Jungkook was on his feet instantly, taking the stairs 2 at a time. He burst through Innie's bedroom door to find her curled up in a ball, her small face flushed with fever and her breath coming in short pants. Even in sleep, she looked fragile and broken, and the sight nearly brought him to his knees. Jungkook. "Innie," he whispered, sinking down beside her bed. "Jungkook, baby, I'm here." Her eyes fluttered open at the sound of his voice, unfocused and glassy with fever. When she saw him, she instinctively tried to pull away, the memory of the night before still fresh and painful. Ynie. "No," she whimpered, pressing herself against the headboard. Ynie. Don't hurt me again." The words shattered what was left of Jungkook's composure. "Jungkook. Oh, sweetheart, no. No. I would never. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." His voice broke as he reached out to touch her forehead, feeling the heat radiating from her skin. "Jungkook, you're burning up. We need to get you to a doctor." But Innie shook her head weakly, tears streaming down her fevered cheeks. "Innie, I don't want to go anywhere. I want Mama. I want Mama and Papa." The raw grief in her voice, grief that he'd been too busy to notice, too caught up in his own pain to address, hit him like a tsunami. She was 9 years old and had lost everything. Her parents, her sense of security, and now, because of his cruelty, Her faith in the one person who was supposed to protect her. Jungkook. I know you do, baby, he said softly, his own tears falling freely. Yoonku. I want them too. But they can't come back. So we only have each other. And I've been a terrible brother to you. The worst brother in the world. Innie looked at him through fevered eyes, her small body trembling, with sickness and emotional exhaustion. Innie, why don't you love me anymore, Orpa? Did I do something wrong? I tried to be good. I tried not to bother you, but... He moved closer, relieved when she didn't pull away this time. Jungkook, but I was wrong. So wrong. Because what you needed wasn't money or a big house or expensive things. You needed your oppa. You needed someone to read you stories and help you with homework and make you chocolate cake on my birthday because that would make you happy. And I failed you. I failed you so badly that I hurt you. The one person in this world I should protect above all others. Innie's fever-bright eyes searched his face, looking for sincerity, for truth. What she found there made her bottom lip tremble. Why and I just missed you, she whispered. Innie, I missed my big brother who used to play games with me and take me to the park and tell me funny stories. I missed the way you used to laugh and the way you'd ruffle my hair when I did something good. I felt so lonely, Oppa. So lonely. The words cut through him like glass, each one a testament to his failure as a guardian, as a brother, as a human being. Jungkook, I know, baby, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me. Starting right now. He gently reached out to smooth her damp hair away from her forehead. Jungkook. First, we're going to get you better. Mrs. Park called Dr. Kim, and he's on his way over. Then, when you're feeling stronger, we're going to have a long talk about how things are going to change around here. Because they are going to change, Innie. I promise you that. Innie. You promise? The words were barely a whisper, filled with the desperate hope of a child who had been disappointed too many times. Jungkook. I promise, he said solemnly. Jungkook. And I'm going to start by telling you something I should have said a long time ago. I love you, Innie. I love you more than any job, more than any company, more than anything in this world. You are the most important thing in my life, and I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that. A tear slipped down Innie's flushed cheek, but this time it was tinged with relief rather than pure grief. Innie, I love you too, Oppa. Even when you were mean to me, even when you forgot about me. I always loved you. The simple, unconditional forgiveness in her words undid him completely. He gathered her carefully into his arms, mindful of her fever, and held her close as she pressed her hot face against his shoulder. Jungkook, I'm never going to forget about you again, he murmured into her hair. Jungkook, never. You're my little sister, my family, my heart. And from now on, you're going to come first. Before any meeting, before any deal, before anything. I promise you that, sweetheart. I swear it. Dr. Kim arrived an hour later to find Jungkook still holding In-hee, both of them finally peaceful for the first time in months. The diagnosis was exhaustion and emotional stress manifesting as a fever, not uncommon in children who had experienced trauma. With rest, fluids, and most importantly, emotional support, she would recover fully. Dr. Kim. She needs stability, Dr. Kim told Jungkook quietly as they stood outside In-hee's room. Doctor. Children who have lost their parents often develop anxiety and depression when they feel abandoned by their remaining family members. The physical symptoms are her body's way of expressing emotional pain she doesn't have the words for. Jungkook nodded, the weight of his failures sitting heavy on his shoulders. Jungkook, I understand. Things are going to be different from now on. Much different. Over the next few days, as In-hee recovered, Jungkook began to make good on his promises. He called Minho and restructured his entire schedule, blocking out time every morning and evening to be with his sister. He delegated responsibilities he'd been hoarding, hired additional staff, and made it clear to everyone at Chun Enterprises that his family would always take precedence over business. The changes weren't easy. There were moments of frustration when deals fell through because he wouldn't sacrifice family time for negotiations. Times when his executives questioned his priorities. But every time he felt himself wavering, he remembered In-hee's fevered face and the way she'd flinched away from his touch, and his resolve strengthened. The first morning he woke up early to make breakfast for In-hee. She stared at him in confusion. Why? You don't have work today, Oppa? Jungkook. I do have work, he said, flipping pancakes with exaggerated flair that made her giggle. Jungkook. But my most important job is being your brother. Everything else can wait until after we have breakfast together and I walk you to school. Her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Bright and warm and full of hope. It took weeks of consistent effort before In-hee truly began to believe that the changes were permanent. She'd been disappointed too many times to trust easily. But gradually, as Jungkook showed up for every dinner, helped with every homework assignment, and tucked her in with a story every single night, the walls around her heart began to crumble. The real turning point came on a Saturday morning in October. Jungkook had woken up early to finish some work before In-hee got up, but found her already awake in the kitchen, standing on a stool as she tried to reach the cereal on a high shelf. Jungkook, let me help, he said, lifting her down and getting the cereal for her. Why? Thank you, she said quietly, then hesitated before adding, In-hee, Oppa, can I ask you something? Jungkook, anything, sweetheart. Why? That night when you got angry, did you really mean those things you said? About me making things worse and being a bother? Jungkook's heart clenched. He'd been waiting for this conversation, knowing it would come eventually. He knelt down so they were eye level, taking her small hands in his. Jungkook, anything. In-hee, promise me that if you ever feel that angry again, You'll tell me before you get too upset, so I can help you feel better instead of making you feel worse. The wisdom in her words, the maturity that trauma had forced upon her too early, made his throat tight with emotion. Jungkook, I promise, baby. And can you promise me something too? Promise me you'll always tell me when you're feeling sad or lonely or scared, so I can help you feel better. Al,